Hey, welcome to day 3 of the Embodied Grace Challenge. Again, this is where my guides have told me we've got to break the dysfunctional human condition. And breaking the dysfunctional human condition really means stepping into our truth of our divine right, our divine connection, really learning to embody grace in all aspects of life, okay? Now, when I say that, again, you guys, being in embodied grace is just being in tune with the divine, really finding that spiritual connection, and then learning the truth. And part of learning the truth is getting past the limiting beliefs we have, which is where my guides are calling it the dysfunctional human condition, because what they're showing me is that it's a dysfunctional pattern to be separate from God. So we're learning to reclaim the truth of our divine sovereign being that we are. We're learning that we can reconnect with God as soon as we decide we're ready. Like all of these different things that are coming through about really connecting and understanding that the spiritual part of us needs to be at play and needs to be connected to this human experience that we're having in order for us to have the best life that we can have. Okay. So that being said, for day 3, the one thing that I want to go over is guilt. We've got to get past the guilt of wanting more. So if you're on this challenge, there's probably something in you that is saying, God, I just really want my life to be easier, better, more something, right? You may not even know what it is. Like in the beginning for me, I just had this yearning that life should be more. It should be more easy. It should be more abundant. It should be more prosperous. It should be more happy, right? So we have to get past the guilt of wanting that something more. Now, you could be in a place right now where life is pretty good. Like in the book, I talk about how for me, like I kind of jokingly say, the story is I have no story. I mean, obviously that's not true. I've been through a lot, I've seen a lot, and I understand that like it could have been worse, right? And that's one of the limiting beliefs that doesn't sound like a limiting belief, but it really is. Like it could have been worse. You're lucky that you have what you have. There's something about like, in that space of saying you should be lucky that you have what you have, or you should be grateful that you have what you have, that's great and that's true, but also it comes from a place of lack. So there's also a difference between contentment and complacency. So it's one thing to be in contentment where you're happy with everything you have, but still having a little bit of a desire for more. Right? So if you talk to any of or if you listen to, or if you follow any of the gurus, like any of the motivational speakers, a lot of them have had like this really sad trauma drama story. And I don't go into that because really mine could have been worse, right? I've seen other people who have had it a lot worse than I have. Now, that being said, I also, I know what it's like to not have a lot. I know what it's like to be glad to have a money for milk, right? So it's kind of that space. But what's interesting about all of that was the guilt that I had to overcome just about wanting more. Because again, you guys, it was all of these negative beliefs that were ingrained in my mind, right? Like, as long as we can buy a gallon of milk, we shouldn't complain. We weren't rich, but as long as we had 2 pennies to rub together, we were doing really good. Like, all of those little sayings that you've probably heard on some level or another, it really could be worse, right? That being said, again, in order for humanity as a whole and the collective as a whole to really start ascending and start moving into all that God has for us, we have to start looking at some of these little things and why do we think that? So, and this is the first step, you guys. When you're in the spiritual journey, you kind of have to go through all this because you've got to get through these limiting beliefs to be able to then understand that true spirituality, you really don't need any of it, but you've got to get through the beliefs of that in order to connect your head and your heart to the true understanding that really we kind of create our own reality. We create what we want while we're here. So we've got, and that's the truth of spirituality. Like when you get to that truth, when you're in that place of abundance, when you're really connected to the divine, then you know that we can experience whatever we want in life and we can experience whatever life has to offer. And it's hard to wrap your head around that sometimes in the beginning. So just go with me through this challenge and know that you're going to be looking at this stuff. And then the longer that you go through your journey, so 2 years from now, this will mean something totally different. It'll still probably be valid, but it'll mean something totally different because you'd already been through a couple layers by then, right? So every time I teach this, it up levels my thinking, and I uncover another limiting belief that I didn't realize was there, and I usually come into another level of guilt that I didn't know was there, right? Because when we're in this space that we should be lucky, like we're just lucky that we have what we have. That's absolutely true. However, you can always want more. And so it's kind of a weird place to be in. But in the beginning, it's getting over the guilt of wanting something more. Because if you're in this space, and especially, like most of the people in America, even the ones that are struggling, it could be so much worse. And we get that in our head, which then kind of keeps us stuck, right? So getting over the guilt of wanting more is going to be really what this day is about. So I want you to look at, like, when you're looking at the average American dream, like, where are you that there, of course you're having happy moments and of course you're enjoying your life, but is there something that you want more? Is there something that, like, somewhere inside of you feel like something's missing, or you feel like you're being, like, you want to have this drive to get something more, but you don't know why, or you feel like, you just feel guilty because you just should be happy with what you have, right? It goes back to yesterday where we talked about the shoulds. Like, we've got to get rid of the shoulds. So, again, you guys, in my own story, by the time I went through this, now growing up like I did, I kind of jokingly say we lived in the projects, but it really, it was a small town, so they weren't that bad, but they really were. When my mom and dad divorced, we literally lived in government housing. So I know what that's like, right? And of course, I'm so lucky that I was in a small town. It's not like I was in some town where the ghetto was really bad, but I'm just telling you, you have to get past the guilt, because when you're in that situation, you're not judging yourself as being better than anybody else. That's not at all what this is about, but it's getting over the guilt of wanting more, and then having the motivation or the drive or the instincts or the intuition, following your intuition enough to know that you can have more. And again, it's not about being better than anybody else, because anyone can look at this and anyone can do this work. You just have to want it, and you have to trust it, and you have to be willing to get past some of the things that we're trained into, the guilt, the negative beliefs, the limiting thought patterns, those kind of things. So that being said, just knowing that you're in this, just knowing that you're reading the book, that the Embodied Grace book, or knowing that you're going to do this challenge, that's like the first step in really being into understanding what it is to find that next level of happiness, or find that next level of abundance, or whatever, right? So anyway, I think that's it. The biggest thing that I want you to focus on for today's challenge is, where is the guilt, right? Let's not go with the grass is greener either on the other side. Like, of course, there's that temptation of, well, the grass is greener on your side because you didn't have this or that or the other. The grass is greener where you water it. So if you can do this for yourself and really look at your own thoughts around this, and then again, for today, really focus on the guilt. Like, where do you feel guilty that you want more, right? And then how is that showing up for you? So is there any part of you that feels guilty? If not, you can skip today. But I have a feeling that somewhere deep inside, there's some guilt that you're either lucky enough to have what you have, or that you should just be happy with what you have, or there's guilt for really wanting more, or different, maybe different than what you grew up with, right? So look at the guilt today, see where that shows up, and we'll talk about it in the Facebook group. Have a great day. Talk to you guys soon.